Rolling.
Rolling.
All right, all right, all right. So today's a special episode, I guess. um, Me and Alicia are not in the same room. We are skyping in, as that's why you can hear her sound very, very like Darth Vader.
I'm on planet Mars right now.
How's the weather over there?
Actually, no, planet Venus for the love planet. Since we're talking about psychos and love today.
Oh man. So let me ask you, when did you go back and rewatch a lot of these movies or no?
Half of them I did, half of them. Wait, which? Let me see. The Okay, so I've seen 3 out of 2 recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you
'Cause
still have?
the other one is kind of hard to find, so that's why like I haven't. But I've saw it like a couple years ago,
Is
and
that
I've seen it multiple times. So
is that the older one?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I actually rewatched a couple of mine too. I think the only one I didn't rewatch is the plainly obvious one. Uh,
Oh, okay.
so to me, I watched that movie so much that I kind of know it by heart by now.
Yeah.
And so
That's how I feel with a lot of these.
yeah, and so what was your process in like finding your movies?
So mine, it's funny because it's like I grew up with these movies. Like I feel, like a lot of people growing up, they watch like Disney and like, family themed movies. I mean, I watch those too, but I feel like these I like watched really young and like just grew up with these. Like these are a part of my life. And the generation I was in, the 90s, there was a lot of like obsession, stalker. You had Lifetime movie or Lifetime channel, and that's what they showcase a lot of the time. So my whole process was kind of going back to like, well, shoot, like I grew up with these, so this is just normal psycho romance movies to me. So I just kind of like went back to what I grew up with within this. What would this be, like a subgenre or genre? What would you call this?
I would like a subgenre because it kind of fits in that whole mold of like thrillers and obsession.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
and some of these are not particularly horror films. Although
Yeah.
a couple of them could be considered like straight horror films, but a majority of the ones that we have that we talked about kind of really fall under the line of thrillers and obsession. You know what I mean?
Yeah, mine do. Mine do for sure. Yeah.
If as for me, I kind of went with the idea of like, I wasn't a popular kid in high school or in school in general, and so like
Mhm.
I knew what rejection felt like. So a lot of my movies kind of dealt with the exception of one, dealt with rejection. You know what I mean? And the,
Oh, interesting.
and so that's why if like there's a theme throughout my picks that have like rejection. Like these are people that are rejected, but at the same time, there is something completely wrong with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just takes that extra nudge for them just to go over, just like fly off the fucking handle. You know what I mean?
And it's funny because like growing up, I was always like attracted to these like psychotic people, and I
Like
don't know why.
like
Like
JD.
it's weird, right? It's some psychological thing. I don't know, but I was always like attracted to like the bad boy, the stalker, the killer. So it's like I don't know.
Do you
I
feel
don't
the
know. It's
same way
weird.
now? Watching some of these
Huh?
movies, do you still feel the same way now? Like watching these
Oh
movies?
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. It's weird. I know it's really freaking weird,
You
but I
got a
can't help
problem.
it.
You need to see a psychiatrist.
Hey, psychiatrists are more screwed up than people, so
Yeah, I would argue
I don't think
that.
they can help.
So let's get right into it, and let's start off with you. What's so these are not really in order. These are just like five movies that we recommend. That kind of deal
Yeah.
with the topic of cycles and love. And honestly, I had fun rewatching some of these movies. Actually,
Oh,
I
you did?
yeah, because I totally forgot about a couple of them, and I was like, oh shit, this is really good. And I watched two of them last night, and I was like, oh, okay. Now I know
Yeah.
why I like this movie. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
All right,
All
so
right, so I guess I'll kick off. So my first pick, and like I said, or like you said, these are not in order. These are just five that we like. Um, Mine's going back to my childhood once again. It's Fear from 1996 with Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon and William Peterson, Alyssa Milano. This movie is just so great. This is like Mark Wahlberg kind of before he became really like action drama guy. You know what I mean? Like today
I
everyone
think that
knows him
I
for
think
like
that kind of came
dramatic.
later, because around this time he did Basketball Diaries,
Yeah, and he was a
Fear.
model and a rapper.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny too because Leonardo DiCaprio didn't want him in Basketball Diaries just for that reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's all like, I don't want this guy in there because I don't think he can act. But if you watch Basketball Diaries, he's arguably like he's a scene stealer in that movie. You know what I mean?
That's such a good movie, and it's funny because they're like best friends, right? Or they're
Yeah,
like
they're
really
best
close
friends
friends
now.
now.
They weren't then.
Yeah. But yeah, he's like, I know everyone likes him for drama or like action, but he's freaking great as like a psycho. He really nailed this in the coffin, no pun intended. But like, he was just great because he was like, super good looking, kind of a bad boy, but you wouldn't expect him to be like that psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
And just this showdown between him and William Peterson, or what's his name?
Thank you so much for joining us, Professor.
Oops, sorry, I think I have like something going on here.
Professor, what makes you...
Okay, sorry about that.
What was that?
My YouTube popped up for some reason. I don't know why. Sorry about
Your
that.
place is haunted.
Huh?
Your place is haunted. I always get a weird feeling walking in there.
My place?
Yeah. It's like I get goosebumps walking in there. It's like, what the fuck?
What happened is my internet, when it goes out, it freezes on certain web pages I have open, and then once I'm starting to use my laptop again, it'll just like go on. So like I'll hear it sometimes. I'm like, what the hell is that? But no, it's just because the web pages.
Ah, okay. All right, you got a reasonable explanation this time.
No, my house isn't haunted. It's chill. It's good. But anyways, back to like Mark Wahlberg. No, it's just like he just delivers in this film, and so does Reese Witherspoon. Like she's all famous now too, and like kind of known as like
the rom-com.
Not like America's sweetheart, but she's known for like doing things like that. But yeah, just the acting in this movie, the scenes, like the dog. That scene always gets me.
The Mustang is always like a fun one. That's fucking hilarious. When he walks out and says, "I pop both your cherries," and he's like, "What the fuck?"
I know, right? And like her dad, William Peterson, like, oh my god. But yeah, like everything. I don't know. Everything's good. The story is great. The acting's great. The music's good, and it's just like that obsession, like psycho boyfriend. He really delivers in it. So, and I'll watch it every now and then. I'm like, man, I watched this when I was like really young. Holy crap! But yeah, this one I really recommend. I know I mentioned to you last time. I was like, oh, I hope they never remake this, but they probably will. But,
yeah.
For what it's worth, it's just such a good movie.
This is like peak
1996.
This is like peak Wahlberg too. You know what I mean? It's like this is. I think Wahlberg is really in his bag in this movie. I think he really delivered an outstanding performance in this, and I think it gets overlooked because of the movie. It didn't do well, and it kind of got shunned on too when it came out.
Yeah.
People looked at it as like
not a lot of people like go back and watch it and really like it.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this on TV and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty decent. And then that whole third act when it becomes like a home invasion movie, it's like, what the fuck is this? So that's always fun.
Yeah.
All right.
So what's your pick?
So number 5 for me would be 1988 Heathers. And so this tells a story of a girl who's trying to fit in with a powerful clique in high school known as the Heathers. The stars Winona Ryder, Christian Slater, and a pre-Beverly Hills Shannon Dorothy, which is always fun to see. I don't know why she hasn't been in more movies. I always thought she was someone that could be... I always thought she was a movie star, you know what I mean?
She's difficult to work with. That's why she was fired from 90210 and Charmed.
Yeah, yeah. I think Kevin Smith even has like an amusing anecdote about her too when he was working with her on Mallrats.
Yeah.
I have to look that up. But this tells a story, and Veronica is one of those people that wants to join the Heathers, and she kind of falls in love with one of the bad boys in this movie. His name is Jason Dean, who goes by JD, and he's always dressed in black, trench coat, greasy hair, and Christian Slater is just amazing in this movie.
Yeah.
I think he steals some of the scenes in here, and the relationship between him and Veronica throughout this movie is really like realistic. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's not even like a relationship in the sense where it's a good one. It's a relationship in the sense where it's kind of abusive. Like when you think about it, because he's like domineering her and taking advantage of her because he doesn't think that she has like power within herself to like stand up to him or anything like that. But then when it comes toward the end, it kind of blows up in his face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the tables turn.
Yeah, and this movie deals with a lot of things too, like teen suicide, homophobia, school shootings. I really don't think I don't know how the TV show would even handle any of these topics without
Yeah,
being.
that's the thing because they remade it. I know we're talking like they remade it into a television show, and I feel like so many of the topics in the film, it's we live in such like a
PC
I
world
don't know,
now.
yeah, PC culture where everything offends someone. So I don't know if they could make this movie today, and I don't know how the show is going to be, honestly.
You couldn't make this movie today without being like triggered. I think the closest one that kind of did it was Assassination Nation.
That and also like 13 Reasons Why, which also is getting a lot of backlash for a lot of the things they've shown.
Yeah, and the thing about Heather's is it's a dark parody on a John Hughes film.
Yeah.
And even though the humor is mean spirited, it's sorry, I got a ticker going on there. It's mean
Like, oh,
spirited.
your room's haunted.
Yeah, right. But it's mean spirited, but it winks at you in a way, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very like tongue in cheek.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed this movie. I remember the only thing I remember as a kid watching was the funeral scene where everyone's wearing the 3D glasses, and Winona Ryder just covered in ash. That's the only thing I remember watching as a kid, and then rewatching it, I was like, "Holy shit, this movie is pretty fucking hilarious." It is really dark too. It gets dark at times, and you really have to look for the humor in order to get through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's seriously like one of the best. It's like one of my top three favorite films. I never get sick of watching it just because of all the one-liners, the dark humor. Like if that's what you're into, this is totally up your alley.
Yeah, this is a really good movie, and I highly recommend it. It's a high school movie unlike any other high school movie. And you can totally see its influence on other movies.
It's mature in a way.
Yeah. And it doesn't pander to its audience, which is good.
Right.
Alright, so that's my number 5, Heathers.
Alright. So I had kind of a tiebreaker, but I think I'm just gonna do one of them instead of mentioning both. I want to do a more recent one because a lot of my picks are older, and this one is more recent. This one's from 2013, and it's called Plush, and it's directed by Catherine Hardwicke, and everyone knows Catherine Hardwicke for the Twilight film. She also did 13. So if you know like her style, you'll know like how this film is gonna look. It's very kind of different filmmaking. But anyway, this was a cool movie. It's Emily Browning, and she plays like a rock star. She's very young. She's in a band with her brother, played by the lovely Thomas Dekker, who I really like. They're brother and sister, and they have a band, and they're on the brink of like becoming really, really, famous. And he unfortunately ODs. And this is like all in the beginning, by the way. So Thomas Dekker is not in it for the whole thing, which sucks. but like he's got a prominent role still. But anyway, so his passing makes her really, she's just very devastated, and she doesn't know what to do with her music anymore because they would write music together, lyrics and the musical stuff. So they were like a team. So she starts to write, but it's not received well by the fans and the music industry. So she feels kind of lost. And then they get a new guitarist who looks just like her brother, and it turns out he's really obsessed with her and her dead brother. And it's played by Xavier Samuel, who's really awesome. He's such a good actor.
Who will come up later in the show, actually.
Yeah, I really like him, and I want him in more stuff because I just think he's really great. He's such a good psycho in this. So you find out really dark stuff. She's married, but she has 2 kids, and she's only like 19 or 20. But eventually, like, they have an affair, and she feels really guilty about it because they're like on tour and they're like messing around, and she gets pregnant, but her husband has had a vasectomy. So there's like, so she's just like, oh, what should I do? And then it turns out Xavier Samuel's character has placed like walkie-talkies in her house, or like these listening devices, so he can hear everything that's going on. He follows her everywhere. He just does like really dark stuff to her, and you find out, spoiler alert, that he made her brother OD. And it's just very dark and twisted, and he's like, I don't know, like he's a likable psycho. You know what I mean? Like he's got that kind of charm about him.
Is it kind of like that dude from You, where like he's like he does like really really fucked up things, but you can't help but like him?
Yeah, exactly. And those are my favorite. I don't know why. I love those types. But so yeah, it's very stylistic, this movie. It's very rock and roll. It's got cool music. They all have like a cool look to them. I don't think it's for everyone, but if you're into everything I just mentioned, I think, give it a go for sure. I don't really hear a lot about this movie. Not a lot of people talk about it, so that's kind of why I wanted to mention it.
When did this come out?
This came out 2013, and it's from Blumhouse.
Oh, so this is post Twilight?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I would have figured this would have came out like pre-Twilight or something like that.
No, it has that feel, but no, and it's funny because Xavier Samuel was in one of the Twilights.
Wow.
He was, I think, it was the third one. He was in the third one, Eclipse. And he was the bad one. He was a bad vampire in Eclipse. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, this was post-Twilight, because Twilight came out 2008. This was 2013.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm going to have to check this one out. Well, where can I see this? Is this like on Prime or something?
You can... So I first originally saw this on Netflix, but they took it off.
Damn you, Netflix.
And then... I know, and then Prime has it to rent, but it's not, it's not free if you have Amazon Prime. So it is a little hard to find now, but back in the day, it used to be on Netflix.
Alright, so what was it called again? Plush?
Plush.
Alright.
2013. Alright,
so mine is from 2007. Mine are a little bit more modern, with the exception of number 5, with Heather's. It's 2007, it's called The Cellar Door. And this follows a serial killer who, kidnaps women and locks them up in his basement. And he cooks them food, and he tries to, break them so eventually they will become his wife. And, a few mishaps happen, and then you find out that he has done this for a very long time. And, he kidnaps this woman and puts her in a cellar door. He builds like a cell and then puts her in there. But then this girl starts turning the tables on him and starts telling him like, you're no good. You're a fat piece of shit. I'm not gonna eat your food and stuff like that. And so he ends up taking away like food and water, stuff like that, so she can start being weak. But then he feels bad and starts feeding her again. And then, then she turns it again on him, and then he raises the stakes by bringing in her friend and then trying to kill her in front of her, and then...
That's messed up.
Yeah,
wow.
And so, she's like, are you gonna listen to me now? Because I'm just gonna kill your friend in front of you, and you're gonna watch, And so
Wow.
once he does that, somehow she breaks out, and then that whole last 10 minutes of the movie is like them running around in the house and just it ends in a really bloody fashion. There's a really good moment where two Jehovah Witnesses come to the door and say, "Hey, can we talk about the about God for you?" It's like, "No, this ain't a good time," and they just burst into the door anyways as he's closing it. And he's like, "We want to talk to you about the Bible, blah blah blah." And then the girl in the basement is yelling, "It's like, help me!"
Oh my god.
And then like the two Jehovah Witnesses are looking at each other like, yeah, is there someone back there? And then he's like, I really wish you just left. And then he starts like hacking them both up inside of his living room.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. Is it like super gory?
That last 10 minutes it is. Actually, no, there is a really crazy supermarket scene where he goes and so he frequents the supermarket and he
Mm-hmm.
buys the same thing. And one of the girls works there. He's like, "Oh yeah, buy chocolate." He's like, "Okay." So he does that. He comes back and he buys chocolate cake, and then it's the same girl that told him that. And then he comes back a third time, and he's like, "Yeah, it's for my girlfriend," and she's all, "Yeah, right." Like
Wow.
really sarcastic. You know what I mean? And that fucking flips him. That kind of like turns him over. So he waits for her and then bashes her fucking head in with a baseball bat in the middle of the parking lot.
Jesus.
Yeah, it is really crazy and really brazen too because you start to see that this guy is starting to unravel and also just he's been at this for so long that he knows his cues, you know what I mean? So I think that's what's really unnerving about it, that he's been out there for years and no one's ever caught on.
What year was this again?
2007. This was made
This is
by
a film that I feel like I don't even I've never heard of this.
yeah, this was a really low budget film, and it's really low budget. I would have to show you. I would have to show you the movie. It's
How did you hear about it?
actually it was accidental. I was Streetlight, and I was at Streetlight Records. I was going through some movies, and I was looking for a couple of movies, and I was in the horror section, and then I saw the cover. The cover is basically like a stairs with a dude like in the doorway and like a hand coming out of like a cellar. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And then I was like, what the fuck? And I looked back and there's like this dude covered in blood and this other girl covered in blood. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I bought it for like $10 and I came in and I watched it and I was kind of lukewarm on it when I first saw it. And I was like, okay, whatever. Maybe I just didn't appreciate it. But then I watched it again. I appreciate it because what I'm trying to do, like now in my life, I kind of appreciate the do-it-yourself mentality of what they did. You could totally tell that they were on a shoestring budget on this because a lot of this shit, man, is it's pretty funny. You can see the reflections of the cameras when the cars drive by and shit. So I don't know. I thought it was I thought it was charming because like these guys just went out and made their own film, so I can respect that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my number 4.
Number 4. Okay. My next one is another great 90s one that I grew up with on Lifetime. It's called Mother May Sleep with Danger. Not the James Franco one because he did remake it a couple years ago. Tori Spelling is in the original. And I know James Franco used her again in the remake, but it's totally not even the same story.
Was this produced by her dad?
The new one. Well, I don't get it because the new one that he remade, he makes them be like lesbian vampires, and that's not what the 90s one was at all. Basically, so the story is Tori Spelling, who was like in her prime in the 90s, 90210, and she did like a bunch of movies. She's a college student, and she meets this guy, and she thinks he's like the greatest ever. And she's like very busy with school, and she's got like an eating disorder, and she like swore off men, but when she meets him, she just like falls head over heels with him. He's very charming.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out the guy is a freaking psychopath. So it's very similar to Fear, but more, more for TV made. Like Fear showed some like really sexual stuff and violence. This one, he does kill people, but it's tamer. It is a TV movie. Um, but this is just great. The guy that plays like the psycho boyfriend is awesome. He's been in a bunch of Lifetime movies as well, but it's just great. Like he has a pattern because he's done this so many times. He's trying to find like the perfect woman, but all of the women he dates, he makes them like dye their hair platinum blonde. So he's got like a specific type.
So he has a type, all right.
Blonde, and he like kidnaps her and takes her to like his cabin and just messes with her car so she can't leave, and like really kind of holds her captive. And her mom tries to find her and goes in this whole journey and stuff and finds out this guy's like dark history. But it's such a good movie, and it is, watching it now because I watched it like a couple months ago, very 90s. But I don't mind that. It's very nostalgic for me watching this because I loved it growing up. But it's a fun one for sure. And that one also came out in 1996.
Now, is this one produced by her dad?
I don't think so. Aaron Spelling? I don't think so.
No? Because I know he's produced a couple of movies that she starred in.
Yeah. Well, he
I was
was
wondering
like
if
a
this
big
was one
producer.
of them.
Yeah, but I don't think he had anything to do with this one.
Okay. And what is this? Where's this one on?
You can find it on YouTube. Has it? Daily Motion, Lifetime Movie Network has it on their website.
And we should like redub this
So
episode.
this one is more accessible for sure.
We should redub this episode. Lifetime presents Bump in the Night.
I know. There's so many good Lifetime ones. Like that's my childhood.
Wow. Alright, so my next one is another one from 2007. It is Otis. Now, this is, oh man, I recently watched this. I just watched this last night, and I totally forgot, like, how hilarious it is. So this tells a story about a serial killer who kidnaps perky blonde teenage girls, renames them Kim, and keeps them for about 6 weeks so he can take them to the prom.
Wow.
And so he has the prom suit, he has the prom dress, he has the girl, he has a Trans Am in the garage. He does everything, and so it's a really funny movie. Our lead antagonist is played by Boston Christopher, and our protagonist is Ashley Johnson, who a lot of people would know that does the voice of Ellie from The Last of Us. And you know what? This movie is kind of funny now. I remember when I first saw it, this movie was fucking hilarious, but I don't think the humor kind of holds up as well as it used to.
What year again?
This was 2007, and this was put out by Warner Brothers under their Raw Feed production logo. The Kevin Pollak though, every time he comes on screen, he's fucking hilarious though. I don't know why.
That's weird for him to do that kind of movie.
Not at that time, I don't think. At that time, I think he's kind of like toward the tail end. So you kind of like right now. I mean, when's the last time you seen Kevin Pollak in a movie?
Doesn't he always do? Well, yeah, he does.
He's a stand-up comedian right? Too. That's what you gotta remember. He made his bones as a comedian.
Yeah.
But it's funny that seeing this little like 5'6" guy, slapping the shit out of his 6'2" foot brother. You know what I mean? It's hilarious. Yeah. And they have a really interesting take on how like the media sensationalizes these kind of murders, and it's kind of like a backdrop. So they have like these CNN things where it says, "Oh yeah, we wish like they come home, blah blah blah." But then in reality, they're just there to like sensationalize the murder. You know what I mean? They're just waiting for the body to drop so they can just report it and move on.
That's kind of how it is today.
Yeah, and the mom is played by Arlena Douglas, and the dad is Daniel Stern. Those two have some great chemistry and has some great one-liners. Those two really play off of each other very well.
What happened to Daniel Stern? Like, he hasn't really done anything recently.
He did this one, and then after that, I have not seen him in anything else.
He was great.
Yeah, I really like Daniel Stern. But this is a really fun movie. I recommend, like, if you never seen this movie, or really like mean spirited comedies, I highly recommend this one because at first view, the jokes are gonna land, but on second view, the jokes are not gonna land as well because it's like, you
It's
know,
hard to do that, you know. It's really hard to. I feel like Heather's always nails it, but certain films, it's like, okay, you know.
yeah, especially when they're like mean spirited. I think that's when they're like they have less replay value. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's my number. What are we up to now? 3.
That was your third. Yeah.
Okay. What's going on over there? Are you moving the laptop?
No. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's go.
So my number 2 is an old school one, and this is one of my favorite films, actually. And again, I'm kind of biased with it because I grew up where it was shot. This is Play Misty for Me from 1971 with Clint Eastwood, the man. It's a very I'm not gonna lie, it's very dated. It's very hippie. It was back in the day where they had like the Monterey Pop Festival. The hippies would go, and they actually shoot the real Monterey Pop Festival in the movie when Clint Eastwood's going with his girlfriend. So you can see like all the hippies and stuff back then. But this is a really great movie. It is a slow burner. Not gonna lie, it does take a while to get started, and it is kind of a lengthy movie. But Clint Eastwood plays like a radio DJ, a nighttime radio DJ, and he gets this like mysterious phone call saying "Play Misty for me" with this very like sultry voice from this woman. And it turns out she is a psycho, and it's played by Jessica Walter, who everyone knows her as the mom from Arrested Development. She's got like a mullet, like a 70s mullet going on in this movie.
Yeah, I saw the picture of her. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. But this movie's great. She's a complete psycho. This is like, I would say this is like one of the first female psychos out there, because I know they did like Single White Female, Misery, but she was like the OG, you know what I mean? So she was great. So she's like in love with Clint Eastwood. She stalks him. They have like a one night stand, and she just gets hooked on him. She follows him. She messes with his life completely, like destroys it, and hurts anyone in her way to get to him. And it's just great. And on top of the storyline of the obsession, it's just a really pretty film because it's shot in Carmel and Monterey, so you get to see like a lot of the pretty scenery, like the beaches, and his house is really cool. It's overlooking the beach in Carmel. So for me, it was just cool to watch this growing up because I'm like, oh, I know exactly where that is, you know. But yeah, this is a great movie, and if you're a Clint Eastwood fan, I really highly recommend it. Play Misty for me. That's my number 2.
Yeah, that trailer is really interesting too. It's like they utilize the freeze frame a lot in that trailer.
Yeah, when you look at a lot of 70s trailers, they're like, were they on LSD?
Right?
You don't know what's going on, and they like emphasize one thing and they keep doing it. It's kind of like The Last House on the Left trailer. This is only a movie. This is only a movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Like they repeat a lot on that. But yeah, I don't know. The trailer doesn't hold up. It doesn't do the film a justice. But if you're into very like obsessive thrillers, that is a slow burner, then I recommend this movie.
Yeah, it was saying like a 2-hour length though, right?
I think so. Yeah, I just remember it being long.
When was the last time you watched it?
It's worth it though. It's worth the wait.
All right. So going back to Xavier Samuels, this was one of his first movies actually, and the directional debut by Sean Byrne, The Loved Ones. Huh?
That is a good one.
Yeah, that's a really good movie. I honestly think that's one of my favorite movies that came out in the 2000s. Actually, that's Pretty in Pink on acid. You know what I mean? I honestly like Lola. I think she is someone that is really frightening and very scary.
Yeah, she was great. Has she done anything recently, the actress?
Uh, she's really big in Australia, and
Uh,
she's known as a TV actress down there. But I don't
oh,
think,
really?
yeah, she hasn't made the transition over to America television or cinema.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, that is unfortunate because she was really good in that movie, and she was very
Another
convincing.
female psycho.
Yeah, and you know what? The relationship between Lola and her dad is very interesting and very unnerving at times. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa. I rewatched this last night because it just hit Shutter, so I'm gonna rewatch it just
Oh,
to get like a little memory course, and then just watching it and seeing that slow dance scene between them was just like it was very uncomfortable.
I think it's on Amazon Prime as well.
It's on Prime too.
I think so. I think because I was just scrolling today to look at like their horror stuff, and I'm pretty sure I saw it on there.
It might be on there through Shutter too. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and so
Huh.
this tells a story of our Xavier Samuels, Brent, who's suicidal because he early in the film, like in the opening of the film, he crashes the car that kills his dad, and
Yeah.
8 months later, he's dealing with that guilt, and he can't handle it, so he becomes a cutter. He's looking for different ways to feel alive by doing drugs and leaping over the edge. And one of the girls, you kind of don't know Lola's backstory, but she asks
Yeah.
Brent out to the prom. She says, he's in a polite way says, "No, I'm already going with my girlfriend, but thanks for asking."
Yeah. Like he's a polite guy. He's not a douche.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of important to do because you kind of have to like him. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
can't
because you want him to like survive and get out of
and
this.
be on his side. You know what I mean? So I thought that just him turning her down in a very nice way. I thought that was it's a subtle, but it's a very nice touch, though.
Yeah, sure.
And but as the film progresses, you see Lola starting to deteriorate, and then you start to see that she's been doing this since fucking kindergarten. Because
Yeah, she's crazy.
because she's going through her yearbook, and you see her as a little girl with a little boy, and then it turns into her like becoming a teenager. It's like, holy shit. Like, and to me, I'm like, so the relationship between Lola and her dad, it's like, you can tell she's the one that's manipulating him, but
Yeah.
how did that even become that way when she was a little girl? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, they never really. I only saw the film once, but they never really touched on that, huh?
No, and you wonder, like, maybe because the dad felt bad for Lola because he didn't have any friends, so he started kidnapping kids so she have someone to play with. And so maybe that's what it was, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Because
I have to watch it again.
it's a really good movie. And I rewatched it, and I posted on our on our Instagram the knife scene on our story, and that right there is like, holy shit, that hurt. That hurt me. Like watching that last night was like, oh shit. Like
I know you feel so bad. It's like that Misery scene with the ankles.
The hobble
scene.
So
bad for him. You could feel like his pain.
Yeah, and this movie is also pretty fucking hilarious too. Honestly, there's some really
some humor for sure.
There's some really good comedic lines in here. But Sean Byrne, as a debut, man, very confident in in the kind of story that he was telling, and it showed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did you ever watch The Devil's Candy?
No, I know that's on Netflix now, right?
Yeah, his follow up.
I haven't seen it. Is Is that worthwhile or?
Yeah, yeah. You
Okay.
probably like it because Ethan Embry has like a six pack, and so he's like all shredded.
What? I love Ethan Embry. He's in it.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Oh my God. Okay, I love. Okay, 90s. Like I love Ethan Embry. I can't hardly wait, and I loved him in Empire Records.
Yeah, you would not even think that it was Ethan Embry. He
That's
looks
crazy.
so different. He's so
A six pack? All right, I'm gonna watch this tonight.
yeah. Well, we'll talk about it. We'll lead in with our show tomorrow with that.
I still need to watch Valentine tonight, though.
Oh, you haven't watched that yet?
I've been so busy. No, so I was gonna watch. Like I'm home. I have the house to myself for the next couple of days, so I was just gonna like pop open wine and watch Valentine. And
Did you watch My Bloody Valentine yet?
I've watched My Bloody Valentine, but tonight
Okay.
I was gonna watch Valentine. 'Cause I know we
Okay.
have a really early start tomorrow to do this.
Yeah, we do. All right, so that was my number 2, The Loved Ones.
Hold up, ones. All right, it's a good one. All right, my number one. Another film I'm biased with because it was also shot in the area I grew up with. Basic Instinct with Sharon Stone and Michael Douglas. And this one came out, what was that, 1992? Yeah, 1992.
Yeah.
Directed by Paul Verhoeven, who's great if you're a fan of his. This is just a freaking great movie. It's very sexual, though. I saw this when I was quite young, but I kind of ignored all the sex stuff, and I just loved like the look of the movie and the fashion of the movie because it's very similar. I think it's an homage to one of my favorite films, Vertigo.
Mm-hmm.
You have Kim Novak, blonde. She wears those outfits. They really paid that with Sharon Stone in this. And Michael Douglas had like the Jimmy Stewart thing in Vertigo as well. So it's like a tribute to Vertigo in my opinion. This is a great psychological film, and it's also great because it's a thriller, which we do not have enough of in film. So I just feel like this was a really deep psychological movie. It's so erotic at the same time, though, but this is like true obsession, and you kind of it because it's psychological. Sharon Stone really turns the tables and makes Michael Douglas the one that's obsessed, which is interesting, because he's like our protagonist. So I don't know. I just think it's a very great philosophical and psychological film, and the ending is what really pays off. I don't know. When was the last time that you've seen this movie?
So I came to this movie very late. I didn't get to see this movie till I was 14, and
Okay.
I was able to rent it by myself.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. The mom and pop video store that I lived across the street from, he was always cool, so he let me rent movies and stuff, like horror movies. And this was one of them that I always wanted to see because this was a movie that, as a kid, I had glimpses of,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, Sharon Stone. And then I knew who Sharon Stone was because of The Specialist.
Right.
Then I wanted to see Basic Instinct because, kids talk. It's like, oh, did you see Basic Instinct? Blah, blah, blah. And so I saw it and I was like, holy shit. The hell? And so
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it and I thought it was a really good movie. And then I haven't seen it since maybe my mid-20s is the last time I revisited it. It's not a movie that I revisit so often, mainly because I'm afraid that if I watch it at this point, I don't think it's gonna hold up very well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very 90s, even like the music and the club that he dances with her at. Like it is very dated, but it is the chemistry between the two really holds up.
And I think that's what they failed to capture in the sequel. You know what I mean? Because the chemistry between her and the guy in there just it was like nothing.
It's a shame because the second one, I love David Morrissey, and I loved him on Walking Dead, and I think he's such a good actor. But it didn't, and they do show his butt, but it didn't it just wasn't as intense and fiery as her and Michael Douglas were. I don't know, I can't explain it. They were just it was on point. The first one was very on point. And yeah, but the film is also beautiful too because of the locations.
Mm-hmm.
And her house is so freaking amazing. Like I want that house. But yeah, it's very deeply psychological, and I don't know, kind of has like a De Palma vibe too.
It does. It
Like,
definitely does have a De Palma vibe to it. Definitely does. And
yeah,
and we talked
but
about this too last time. It's like Paul Verhoeven can do like violence and sex very well. You know what I mean?
very well,
And
extremely well.
and I
Yeah,
think this is one of those movies where I think he was just firing on all cylinders. Everything worked from the cast
yeah,
to the script to the movie. I just think everything worked in his favor, and the film is just when I saw it, it was just so electric that boom.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's. I saw it a couple months ago. And I was like, yeah, the chemistry, their acting, it still holds up, it still does, and such like to have an ice pick as the weapon, that's so gruesome, like that's pretty cool.
That opening
But
segment is just like whoa. You kind of don't
yeah,
expect it. You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden that happens. Like what the fuck just happened?
yeah, yeah. So it's definitely like those '90s erotic thriller, I would say. But it does have its horror elements for sure because she is a killer and it's bloody at times. The murders are pretty gory, but yeah, I really love this movie, and it's like I grew up with it, so it's one of those things that I have fond memories over. No, just kidding, but yeah, I would say that's my last pick for the Psychos in Love.
All right, so mine is kind of an obvious one. I was trying to find another movie that kind of fit in this mold, and I wanted to go with a movie that I'm just gonna throw out there. It's called What Keeps You Alive. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen it, but it's about these two women that are in love, and they go out to the cabin, but then you find out that this woman has a very dark secret, and she's a killer, and so she's tormenting her lover throughout the whole entire movie. And I just want to throw that one out just because I think that should be on people's radar. I think that's a interesting movie to be on the lookout for. I think it's on Prime now, so
Okay.
I haven't watched it yet. But just watching the trailer just like made me be like, "Fuck, I want to watch this movie," but I didn't have time to do it. But I just want to
That's
keep that one
really
out.
on your radar too. Yeah, so it's available now to watch.
No, it is available to watch on Prime right now. It was doing the
Okay.
festival rounds when I saw the trailer, but it just hit Prime January. So
Okay, so really recent then.
yeah, it's a real recent film, and I think I should put that one out there because I haven't heard anyone talk about this movie.
Hmm.
So mine is actually an obvious one, and it stars Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis, Natural Born Killers. Where do I go from here that hasn't been said about this movie already?
But it is a good movie though.
but it
It
you know,
is.
but it is a perfect example of what they think love is, because it's interesting that they
Yeah.
both have different types of love. You know what I mean? And it's kind
Yeah.
of revealing when Mickey is talking to Downey Jr. in that interview, and he's saying, Mally was my salvation. She was teaching me on how to love, and that's why I know that after this, I'm going to be done because, she's helping me grow as a person. But before
Yeah.
that, it was just, wild and reckless, and he thought her being wild and reckless with him, he thought that was love. You know what I mean? Uh, I watched this as a teenager, and then I bought the director's cut that was put out by Lionsgate, and I prefer the director's cut. Honestly, it has more sequences. You actually see the warden's head being torn off and being impaled in the prison riot. You actually
Damn.
see the bullet hole when remember when Downey puts his hand out and Mallory shoots his hand.
Yeah.
So that shot lingers for a moment, and then you see the warden's head right in there. So you actually see through the gunshot wound.
I have not seen that version.
You have not seen that version?
Uh-uh.
Oh man, I don't even think they put it. I still have it actually. I'll let you borrow it so you can watch it, and then you would notice the difference because it feels like a different movie. I didn't realize they cut so much out of that movie. It is.
Why did it because of the MPAA or?
Yeah, the MPAA fucking cut the shit out of this movie. They
Yeah.
they really fucking went to work with it with the scissors. You know what I mean? But somehow Oliver Stone managed to get his own cut put out like years later. Like I think the director's cut came out in 1998 through Lionsgate,
Okay.
and it is a massively different movie, and I much prefer that one to the Warner Brothers one. But Mickey and Mallory is pretty much the epitome of what happens when you have two people that are very unhinged that fall in love and then kind of take the world by storm. Really, it's like a modern day version of Bonnie and Clyde. Really,
Yeah, I
if,
could totally just like way darker.
yeah, or like
Yeah.
Starkweather. That's his name.
Yeah.
I remember Tarantino said that that's where he got the inspiration for Mickey and Mallory was that relationship was Starkweather and his girlfriend at the time.
Huh. But yeah, like Juliet, like their chemistry is really good in that movie too.
Star-making performance from like everyone in that cast, and
Yeah.
like look at this cast. You got Tom Sizemore, Tommy Lee Jones, Robert Downey Jr., Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis, Rodney fucking Dangerfield.
And that's so random, huh?
Yeah, and it's like whoa, like Rodney Dangerfield played a fucking dark character. That was
I
just.
wish he did like I wish he did more of that. It's too bad he didn't get to.
I think if I was listening, I watched a movie. I always watch the movie. When I watch the movie, I usually try to watch it with the director's commentary because there's
Mhm.
just so much insight. And he said that when Dangerfield was doing that role, he said that he had a hard time doing it because it was just so dark, and it took him a while to kind of break out of it.
But he did a good job though.
Yeah, he fucking stole that movie. You know what I mean? That whole "I Love Lucy" segment was just whoa. But
Yeah.
that's my number one, Natural Born Killers. I won't go too in depth into it, but because I feel like everyone's seen that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
but
so
it's a solid choice though.
yeah, it is, and so it's one out there that's I really do feel that that's personally one of my favorite movies,
Mhm.
and I it kind of made me a fan and aware of Quentin Tarantino. So because it was
Yeah.
his story to begin with.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So you want like a recap of our?
Yeah, go ahead. So what was yours?
All right. So my top 5 seconds in love were Fear, Plush, Play Misty for Me, Mother May I Sleep with Danger, and Basic Instinct.
And mine were Heather's, The Cellar Door, The Loved Ones, no, Otis, The Loved Ones, and Natural Born Killers.
Nice.
And so yeah, and you can totally tell that there's a theme like with like 4 out of the 5 movies that dealt with rejection. If you watch number 5 to like 2 all back to back to back, you'll see that theme pop up. And
Yeah.
I thought it was really
Yeah.
interesting, and I didn't put it together till last night. Till I watched 2 of them. I was like, oh shit! So that's where
Makes
my head was
sense.
at.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a special guest for next week's episode. Spooky Movies 101 Instagram. He is a movie critic, and he bashed Valentine, and my co-host decided to stand up to him. So I don't know why. I don't know what she was thinking. I don't know.
It's all out of love, though. It's all out of bleeding love.
Yeah, so he'll be joining us tomorrow, and we have an early start time tomorrow, and that episode is gonna be fucking great because
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I feel like I'm gonna be the one that's like disagreeing with everybody, but well, that's okay. I'm used to it, so I'm looking forward to a challenge.
yeah, you got an uphill battle. I'll tell you that.
I do. I really do.
All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you later, and stay scary.
Stay scary. And
Bye.
psycho.